Good morning, students. I am Susmita Nanda, lecturer in computer science. In previous class, we know about what is IP address. So today we are going to know what is internet domains. So a domain name is your website name. A domain name is the address where internet users can access your website. A domain name is used for finding and identifying computers on the internet. Computers use IP addresses which are a series of numbers. However, it is difficult for humans to remember strings of numbers. Because of this, domain names were developed and used to identify entities on the internet rather than using IP addresses. A domain name can be any combination of letters and numbers, and it can be used in combinations of various domain name extensions such as .com, .net and more. The domain name must be registered before we use it. So every domain name is unique, like the roll number of a student. So in a college or in a school, the roll number of a student is unique. Like that, every internet domain name is different for all the IP addresses. We cannot remember the IP addresses of all the systems or all the computers. That's why we are using the domain names, which is known as the website's name. So, like that, in our student database, we save the details of students according to their or in the name of their roll number in against of their roll number. So, roll number and name and the details of students completely design a database of a students. Like that, when we are keeping the records of the domain names against their IP addresses, the entire database is known as the internet domain server or internet domain database. In that database, we are keeping the records of the detail of IP addresses and domain names. The types of domain names divided in top level domains, country level domains and generic level and the second level domains. So basically generic domain names are for .com, .education, .government, .mil, .military, .organization and .biz, which is the generic domain names. And for the country specific, it is only particularized. .in means India, .au means Australia, .ca means Canada, .ch means China. Like that, in this type of domain, we know it is from the which country specific. And from the this type of domain, it is the for the which organization's parts. And domain names is basically divided into two parts. It is the primary and it is the secondary. In the next slide, I will show you. Okay, this is the example of your internet domains. www.example.com, and it is the subdomain and the second level domain, and it is the TLD for the top level domains. So it is the top level domains, means it is the primary part and it is the secondary part. So divided in the internet domains is primary and the secondary. For the primary, it is the top level domain, and because the example is dependent of the .com. .com is the main domain part, which is www.example, all are following the .com, and it is the secondary part. .example is your secondary part in the internet domain. This is the subdomain. www. It is the subdomain. So it is the your top level domain part, it is your the secondary domain part, and it is the subdomain part. Combination of these are in the internet domain. So basically you people remember internet domain is basically used for the website name. So what in your mind when question asks what is the internet domain, you just simply answer that internet domain means our website name. Against our IP addresses we are saving the website name. That is the process is known as the internet domains. Like in our student database, we are keeping the students records against the their roll number. So roll number is unique, like that your IP addresses is unique. So this is all about your internet domains, and the most important part is there. Internet domain basically divided into two parts. One is the primary and another is the secondary. And primary part is known as the top level domain part, which is for the .com. .com is used for the commercial purpose. This generic domain names. .com is known as the generic because it is used for the commercial purpose, and .example, this part is known as your secondary label or secondary domain names. This all about your internet domains. Next is your CIDR notation. So what is the meaning of CIDR? CIDR is stands for classless internet domain routing. Classless internet domain routing. So what is the classless internet domain? So in the class full, in the previous class, we already know that class full IP addresses, so divided into 5 classes, class A, B, C and D, E. So A, B, C, D is used for your multiclassing and the reserve part, but A, B, C is used for the organizations. So A, B and C is the organizations. Class A network contains 2 to the power 24 hosts. B is contains 2 to the power 16 hosts, and class C contains 2 to the power 8 hosts. Means the IP address is divided into two parts. One is the IP address, one is the network ID and another is the host ID. So according to host ID, we are representing the class A, B and C. Okay. So we are knowing that what is classless interdomain routing. Let's see. Classless interdomain routing is the set of IP standards that is used to create unique identifiers for networks and individual device. The IP address allow particular information packets to be sent to specific computer. CIDR is based on a concept called subnetting. Subnetting allows us to take a class or block of IP addresses and further divided into smaller blocks or groups of IPs. CIDR and subnetting are virtual the same thing. See, in this line, I mentioned that subnetting allows you to take a class or block of IP addresses. So, in our class full addressing, we are using the predefined host, but in classless, we are using the block ID as our host ID. Okay. So let's see. Now, let's suppose an organization requires 2 to the power 14 host, but here see, class A have 2 to the power 24, class B have 2 to the power 26, 16, class C have 2 to the power 8. So how will get the 2 to the power 14? Then it must have to purchase a class B because 2 to the power is nearer to 2 to the power 16. In this case, many of the hosts will be wasted. This is the major drawback of class full addressing. That's why the main reason we are choosing the classless interdomain routing. In order to reduce the wastage of IP addresses, a new concept of classless interdomain routing is introduced. Nowadays, NA is using this technique to provide the IP addresses. whenever any user asks for IP addresses, INA is going to assign that many IP addresses to the user.